What is, hey, you're copying my blue color now. Yeah, I did not expect that. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Father and Son Gaming News Podcast right here on Active Reload Gaming. My name is Kobe, aka Kobe127. That is Kevin, aka Octane699. Hello to the chat. We got a lot to talk about today, but how you doing? And we had the Xbox Developer Direct yesterday. How you feeling about that?
Not too bad. Actually, was pretty excited about the direct. It was probably the first direct that I've seen that I am pretty hyped about every game that they shared. I can't wait to play every one of those games.
So I do want to dive into Fable because I know you're a huge Fable fan. I also loved Fable 2. Fable 3, not so much, but Fable 1 and Fable 2, I have some very fond memories with. How are you feeling about this reimagining of Fable?
I think that Fable is back. I mean, I think they took the best things again without it being in my hand and playing it. I think they took the best, elements of 1 and 2 and brought it into this, and they kept, at least what I could see off of this, they kept the true flavor of what Fable is.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. It kept the soul, if you want to look at it that way. It looks like it's keeping the soul of what Fable, what made Fable 1 and 2 great.
Yeah, no, I think there was a lot of trepidation surrounding the reboot of Fable because it's been in development for quite some time now. It's been announced forever ago, and obviously it's Playground Games, a developer who has notoriously made racing games, open world racing games with the Forza Horizon. So them tackling a open world fantasy RPG challenge was going to be a huge undertaking for the studio. And, I was very excited to see what their vision of Fable was going to look like. And I definitely agree. It honors Lionhead Studios' vision of what Fable, I think as we go back in time and listen to what Peter Monalou, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, always talked about Fable and his grand ideas, I feel like we're finally starting to see the vision of what he originally intended for Fable. I think I look at this game. This is a game I want to play now. Like out of everything shown, I want to play Fable right now. The wait is going to hurt. This is the fantasy RPG that I really, really want right now. And as long as they can nail the humor, nail the vibes of the game, everything else looks to be in place. You can become a slumlord. Every decision has this gray subjectiveness to it in terms of the morality system and your reputation. I think Fable it's going to be, I could see Playground having 2 Game of the Year contenders this year between Forza Horizon 6 and Fable. Because Forza Horizon 4, I believe, won IGN's Game of the Year. So Forza Horizon's a massive series. Like, don't undercut Forza Horizon in any way. That is a massive title. But I think Xbox has some heat coming.
But before you even get into the Forza, you talked about the morality. And what I really like what they talked about they're going to do this time is anybody that's played the old Fables, the morality was a big part, but you were either a hero or a villain. This one I really like in the sense, the morality that no matter what morality choices you make, there's people in the world that love you and people that hate you.
Yeah.
So I like that whole aspect of it. And I just read today that there's 1,000 NPCs that you can marry and have children with.
Oh, someone's starting in harem and trying to get all 1,000 under their belt. That is definitely going to be a speed run of some sort. Some sicko is going to do it, but you know what? Good for them. And the combat, as we see here, definitely Witcher-esque, I would say. So as long as they can refine like a modern Witcher style gameplay, I'm happy for it. Like everything here, it's speaking to me. I want this game right now. But yeah, like you said with some of the other titles, even like I had high hopes for Beast of Reincarnation because that's like, when we initially saw the trailer, I'm like, oh yeah, that's my kind of game. It definitely looks like an action RPG that I want to play. And then seeing the trailer, like, once Game Freak is freed from the cages of Nintendo and freed from the Pokemon machine, they get to cook up something that looks pretty cool, and I can't wait to see what kind of final product that is going to be, and I hope it really lands for Game Freak.
But Forza 6, I'm not remotely a racing guy, But this Forza 6, I am 100% going to download it and give it a shot for the pure fact that it just looks incredible. I like the backdrop of Japan. I like the way that they were showing that, you could get into public races seamless. And
No.
and to me, I think giving anybody like Playground Games the shot to make a Fable, I think that it's a good choice. I think they're gonna make the Fable people happy. But Forza 6, man, I'm just telling you, like, this just looks so. Let's back it up. Like their car, modeling and everything else has always been the best in the game. But when you add the backdrop of Japan, I think that's what it is. And like they say, as you see here, they talked about that you're out here, in nature, and then you're down in the city, and then you're up in the mountains. I think just, the whole gamut of what Japan brings is what's going to really bring to this. I just want to get in and cruise around. Like they said, you could just cruise around and look at the scenery. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. I have some hopes and wishes for Forza Horizon 6. So first up, I agree. This game, it looks absolutely stunning. I want to download it on my PC on the ultra wide. I want to see what that's going to look like. I want to play it here.
That'd be sick. That'd be sick on the ultra wide.
So there's a couple of wishes that I have that I hope come to fruition. One of them I feel like is such a slam. Actually, I think they're all slam dunks, but one of them, I'm going to go in the music route in terms of a slam dunk. Put Tokyo Drift in there. Put the song Tokyo Drift and let me just listen to that as I'm drifting through the streets of Tokyo. I think that is such a slam dunk, easy peasy. You'll win all my money if you do that. It's going to make every Fast and the Furious fan so happy to get that song in there. My second wish, which I think is another slam dunk. I texted you this immediately after the thing ended. At the very end of the direct for Forza, they teased what looks to be a Gundam or a mech of some sort, but I assume it's going to be Gundam. And it's going to be like a Gundam versus car type mode. And Forza has had some crazy crossovers and events before. It's Japan. It's Tokyo. Do a Godzilla crossover and have you just drive and race away from Godzilla, man. That'd be such a slam dunk event. I mean, Toho is, you know what? Hang on a second. Underage people from the chat. I'm gonna prove my point, but don't worry about it. I'm gonna go get a drink here quick, and I want to show what Toho is collabing with.
Correct.
And to anyone listening, you'll understand that it's such a slam dunk. Because if they're willing to do this collab, they'll do anything.
I know what he's getting, and this is absolutely insane. I almost fell over when I saw that they did this collab, and Kobe and I are both Godzilla fans.
If they're willing to collab with PBR, the worst beer in existence, you can have Forza with Godzilla.
That's for sure. But we grew up Godzilla fans, and it is, if you're a Godzilla fan now, like, this is the best time ever to be a Godzilla fan. And I think Toho is 100% willing to license him out to about just about it. Well, they had him in Fortnite, and they had him in
they have him in Fortnite, and you could put J's on them.
Yeah, they had Jordans on them. So, going as far as having Forza, it's not out of the realm of it. And when you text me that, I'm like, oh man, that would just be the ultimate.
It'd be such a slam dunk. But yeah, the only reason why I have that PBR is because of Godzilla. It's the only reason why I have it. But Bombay in the chat says Forza games are just plain fun. And he, like Bombay says, they had a Hot Wheels and Lego DLC. Godzilla would be very fun. But any other things about the direct? If not, we got to get into the gaming news, because as the title says, can Ubisoft even recover from the absolute storm that is going through that office? But do you have anything else about Xbox?
I do not.
All right. And as always, remember, this is the Father and Son Gaming News Podcast right here on Active Reload Gaming. We are a bi-weekly news show. At the moment, we're talking about potentially going weekly, but this is the weekly news that we think you should know about that has happened. You can follow us on all of our socials right here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Spotify. We're at Active Reload Gaming. Twitch and Twitter, or X, is at Active Rel. That is with an REL, Active Rel Gaming. So go on, You can find us over there. You'll always see this QR code up in the top left, right above me. This is to join our Discord. Feel free, come chatting with us. We are happy to have you in there. With all that being said, like I said, today we're going to be going over Ubisoft and the storm that has gone through the office. So this article states Ubisoft has a major company reset, 6 games canned, 7 delayed, and 2 studios closed. This is also after 2 weeks ago when they did some union busting and closed their Halifax studio. But this comes from Andy Robinson at VGC. The organizational restructuring, which has been in the works for a year, is designed to help the French publisher reclaim its creative leadership and drive a sharp rebound, it said on Wednesday, following a turbulent few years of disappointing game launches and plummeting stock value, which recently resulted in a minority sale to Tencent. As a result, 6 games have been canceled, 7 delayed, and 2 studios closed, the company confirmed during a media briefing attended by Video Game Chronicle. The 6 canceled games did not meet Ubisoft's new enhanced quality expectations. It said, including the much-delayed Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake, a mobile title, and 4 other unannounced games, including 3 original IPs. In addition, Ubisoft said it's delayed 7 games to ensure they meet quality expectations. It did not say which games had slipped, but confirmed that the 7 titles include 1 title that was planned for release before April 2026, which will now be released before April 2027. Ubisoft has conducted a thorough review of its content pipeline over December and January, the company said. This has led to the strategic decision to refocus its portfolio, reallocate resources, and comprehensively revise its roadmap over the next 3 years. This will support the objective return to exceptional levels of quality on the open world adventure segment and step change the group's position in the games as a service native experience segment. 2 studios were closed as part of the reset. Ubisoft said its Halifax and Stockholm studios, which were previously announced. During a web call attended by VGC, the company said it would consider selling other assets, but did not provide any specific details. Ubisoft is also accelerating its cost reduction initiatives, it said, and is now aiming to reduce its fixed costs by an additional €200 million over the next 2 years. The company wouldn't comment directly on the number of layoffs that could happen as a result of the restructuring and cuts, but regarding canceled projects, CFO Frederick Duguay said, there are some people who will be refocused on other big projects and some may leave the company. As previously confirmed, Ubisoft's new operational model will be structured around multiple independent creative houses, the first of which is Vantage Studios, the subsidiary part owned by Tencent, opened last year, which will oversee Rainbow Six, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry. I think it's important to stop there. And then I want to pull in one more thing that is a little funny because this is an article from Tom Phillips and IGN. Miraculous, Beyond Good and Evil 2 fans can't believe the game has survived Ubisoft's major project call that killed the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake. I will paraphrase this, but essentially, Beyond Good and Evil 2 fans are celebrating a small piece of good news to come from the call of major projects that after almost 2 decades, the game that holds the Guinness World Record for the longest development still isn't dead. While yesterday saw the end of Ubisoft's plans to release a Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake and 5 other unnamed games, no mention was made of Beyond Good and Evil 2, whose record-breaking development now spans almost 20 years off and on. Indeed, Beyond Good and Evil was named by Ubisoft as an ongoing franchise that would be overseen by its reorganized Creative House 4 division. On Reddit, Beyond Good and Evil's long-suffering fans have reacted to the sequel's survival by calling it miraculous, insane, and simply too big to fail. Beyond Good and Evil 2 will survive World War III, quipped Travguard, but it still won't be out by the armistice, added Meet Happening on Reddit. So there's a lot of information going around by Ubisoft. Where do you want to start with this whole business remodeling? And as the title of this whole episode says, do you think Ubisoft ever recovers at this point from any of this?
Let's take a step back. Ubisoft, they were hurting for quite some time. I think that when Microsoft was trying to get European approval with the Activision Blizzard, And part of that was they were stepping in for Ubisoft. I think Ubisoft at that point was hoping that Microsoft would buy them out or Sony, and nobody stepped up. And then, if you remember, part of the agreement for this was Microsoft gave up their cloud streaming for Ubisoft. And then when you remember when Shadows came out, the whole rumor with Shadows was if this doesn't hit it out of the park, that it would hurt and almost put Ubisoft under. Then Ubisoft started to sell off some of their IP, which now brings us to this. So I think it was important before you got to this to understand that this isn't something that we just turned on the news and Ubisoft is in trouble. I think Ubisoft has been in trouble for the last 3, 4, 5 years, that they've been bleeding the money and they needed something. And I think they were hoping that a bigger studio would come in. But, I don't know exactly what numbers did Shadow do. I heard that it did okay. I don't know that it did to the level that Ubisoft needed it to. So I think that's first to understand why we're at this crossroads for Ubisoft.
Assassin's Creed Shadow was a significant commercial success for Ubisoft, achieving the second highest launch revenue in the franchise behind Assassin's Creed Valhalla and becoming the best-selling non-sports/shooter console game of 2025, despite some mixed player reviews with strong engagement and sales driven by a major franchise appeal and early strong digital performance.
Okay. So it did pretty well for them.
To put in perspective, Shadow's got 2 million players in its first 2 days.
Interesting. But let's go back. Everybody's been clamoring for a Japanese samurai assassins forever.
Mm-hmm.
But that brings you up to speed of where you're at with the article right now.
Yeah. The one thing that I do find interesting is let's focus on the games being canceled first. I think the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake being canceled is kind of it doesn't make sense because this title was originally supposed to come out in 2021. It got announced in 2020, but then fans kind of backlashed, as many fans do with anything. They backlashed at the project saying it didn't look up to snuff. So they delayed the game. Then it was supposed to come out in 23, I believe. Then it got delayed again. And there was rumors that it was supposed to shadow drop within the next 2 weeks. And then they go and cancel the game. And I think the one thing that I find interesting is, so many people were clamoring for this title, but I think when you look at Ubisoft's portfolio, I wouldn't put it past them to say that Ubisoft looked at the success of the Metroidvania style Prince of Persia that came out 2 years ago.
Correct.
And said, "Oh well, fans don't want Prince of Persia, so we're gonna cut this. We're not even gonna invest resources into it anymore." Which I also think is backwards thinking because with the Prince of Persia, that even though that game was great and reviewed very well, it wasn't the style that many fans had come to love, and not a lot of Metroidvania. There's not a lot of people who are Metroidvania fans, so I feel like this was going to be a testament to bringing back the Prince of Persia IP entirely. Now that is gone, I find it interesting to see if that IP is just going to be dead entirely. Now, the other projects, including 3 original IPs that they were working on, I think is a big hit to them because I think we need more original IPs and more creative risks. But obviously that not meeting their standards is a huge blow. Now, with all this being said, there's still a lot of franchises in Ubisoft's library that we don't know the state of. Is Watch Dogs going to be permanently on ice? What is the current state of Far Cry? What is ever going to happen with Splinter Cell at this moment? Because these are all big IPs. I assume Far Cry is going to be safe. Far Cry is always a moneymaker for them.
Now, I just heard the rumor that they're doing a remake of Far Cry. Which one was it? Was it Far Cry 3 with the dude from that I liked from Better Call Saul? What was his name?
They just released a 60 frames version of that, so maybe that's what you were hearing. But it's Far Cry 3, and it's It's Michael Mando, I believe is his name, but he's Voss in Far Cry 3.
Voss, there you go, Voss. Now, I thought they were doing a remake, but to kind of just circle back, I was one of them. I loved Prince of Persia on the retro, and I was one that bought the platformer that you're talking about, and I never finished it because I didn't care for it. I tried to play it, tried to get into it, just could not get into it. So I would love for them if they would have continued with that Prince of Persia. And I think it would have hit home because it's again a title that carries a lot of retro weight to people. But I think Ubisoft has a lot of IP that somebody would want. I mean, it's a shame to see that they're in such peril that somebody like a Sony doesn't come and buy that. I think Microsoft is tapped out about on buying big studios at this point, or bigger studios, I should say. I don't know why Sony doesn't pony up and grab them.
I don't think acquisition is good at this rate, but a lot of this does say, when a company restructures like this, it does put the writing on the table that some of these IP franchises or whatever is going to be up for grabs. And I'm wondering if, they're going to start putting some of these IP on the market for other companies to buy and take the rights of. Because the one thing that I kind of glossed over in the article, but I want to bring back is essentially Ubisoft has 5 creative houses. Creative House 1 is the one that has a subsidiary part owned by Tencent and is going to be overseeing Rainbow Six, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry. The other 4 creative houses, number 2 is going to be dedicated to competitive and cooperative shooter experiences such as The Division, Ghost Recon, and Splinter Cell. Creative House 3 is live experiences such as For Honor, The Crew, Riders Republic, Brawlhalla, and Skull and Bones. Creative House 4 is fantasy worlds, and they want to focus on Anno, Might and Magic, Rayman, Prince of Persia, and Beyond Good and Evil. And Creative House 5 is going to be focusing on family-friendly games such as Just Dance and Uno. Which it says here. But yeah, so it is very interesting to see how they're breaking all of this down. But a lot of this, the one thing, like I said, what is happening with the Watch Dogs IP? Watch Dogs is not even mentioned here. So I feel like they're putting that indefinitely in the freezer room. Happy Friday, Cherry Tomato Boy. Welcome to the news chat. So I think this is them silently killing the Watch Dogs franchise. What do you want to say?
It's a shame, too, because me as you were growing up. My 3 favorite studios, Epic being one because of Gears, and then it was Bethesda because of Fallout, and then it was always Ubisoft. I was a big Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. I love their franchises. So, again, it hurts me a little bit that these games are in jeopardy of going under. I mean, that's the reality if somebody wouldn't step in and pick up the IP, or do they go down with the ship? That's the key.
Another thing to point out is obviously Ubisoft, and this is going to be doing a full return to office. They have to come in 5 days a week with some allowance for work from home, depending on the creative house. The CEO goes on to continue about the operational model that they're doing, which is they're transforming Ubisoft's operating model to produce exceptional quality games on the 2 core pillars of our strategy. They just want to completely focus on open world adventures and games as a service native experiences, which is also kind of upsetting as well, because me as a gamer, I do find the Ubisoft open world formula kind of repetitive at this point. I think Ubisoft used to innovate in the open world space, and now it's just rinse and repeat. And their games as a service native experiences, correct me if I'm wrong, but none of them have really taken off. Rainbow Six Siege, I would say, is the big one that has taken off for them, continues to succeed. I really like The Division, but I don't see The Division having, I know they're working on Division 3, but it just makes me feel like Ubisoft is continuing to be confused as who they are as a studio.
I would agree with that. I was never a Clancy fan, any of the Tom Clancy stuff. I just thought that they couldn't compete. But I thought for a while that's what their identity was that sandbox open world feel, because Far Cry and Assassin's Creed really catapulted them to the front there for a while, above the Clancy things. So are they losing their identity? I think they are. And again, I just think that maybe you need some fresh people in the studio to revamp it.
Yeah, it is also important to know that the Ubisoft shares plummet significantly after the maker unveils its new reorganization and canceling 6 games. Trying to find the exact numbers here, but it seems like their shareholders are not happy about this in any way. Oh yeah, Ubisoft shares plunged 34% on Thursday after the maker of Assassin's Creed video game announced a major organizational shakeup alongside plans to shut down studios and Axe 6 games. So it seems like this news is also, it is now, the firm was trading at 664 euros before chaos broke out and plummeted to 427 euros, the lowest it's ever been. So I guess if you want to buy into Ubisoft, now's the time. But yeah, so it's just very interesting. Tinfoil hat on, I do think one of the games that got delayed that was supposed to come out before April of this year is potentially the Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake that has been rumored for
Correct.
the longest time. I've heard rumblings online through rumors that game was supposed to be coming out within the next few months, and even according to like the voice actor who slipped up said it was coming out. I definitely think that one got shelved. I don't even know if we're going to see a new Ubisoft title this year to begin with at this rate, especially with the CEO saying that to put the creative houses in the best conditions to succeed, we decided to refocus our portfolio with a meaningfully revised 3-year roadmap and accelerate cost reduction initiatives to right size the organization. They're discontinuing several projects currently in development, as we already went over. Of course, they say these decisions are difficult, but they are necessary for us to build a more focused, efficient, and sustainable organization over the long term. Seems like a lot of corporate mumbo jumbo. But yeah, I mean, with Ubisoft's new phase, it's hard to be optimistic. You know, I want to say to all the devs who had their jobs cut or people who had their work, and I feel for you. I hope you land on your feet, and I hope things go your way and you're able to come out on top of this. But yeah, I it's really hard for me to see Ubisoft recover from this unless if they really start mass selling their IP to other companies and they just become the Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Rainbow Six house.
Yeah, and I think that's a possibility because right before this reorganization, after the drop of Assassin's Creed Shadow, there was the rumbling that they were going to start working on the next Far Cry. That was the next rumbling that they were talking about because the last one was with Gus, and that I don't think hit as hard as they thought it was either.
Let me take a look here. Far Cry 6 sales. Far Cry 6 franchise. It performs solidly, it says here. Looking here. But
that was one of the few Far Cries that I didn't finish because they really bloated that up with a rinse and repeat. Like all the bases looked the same that you had to take over, and I didn't. That's the only one that I can recall that I didn't finish.
Yeah, same here. But it has sold well into the millions of copies. But the entire series alone has crossed 60 million units sold by late 2025. So Far Cry is still a very popular franchise and will continue to sell. I mean, before we move on from this, I just want you to put your tinfoil hat on and start theorizing what comes next for Ubisoft. Do they survive this? Do they recover? Or is it that, like I said, they just become the mass Assassin's Creed house?
They will recover. Now that recovery looks different in a couple different ways. Either somebody buys them out. I mean, let's go down to Saudi Arabia. They're looking to buy everything and anything. I can see them stepping in because they already talked about wanting to buy a gaming studio. I can see that happen if you want my tinfoil hat. I can see them selling off all the IP except for the 3 that you said just to stay afloat, and they become that house. I think they'll survive. Obviously the Microsoft cloud streaming in Europe hasn't taken off to the level of them receiving any type of profits from it, obviously. So you got that in their future, and anybody that buys that, I'm certain it's transferable. So you just don't
Yeah.
know if cloud gaming is in fact the future. They at least have that locked up for the Europe, for Europe. So I do think they're going to survive in one way or the other.
Just not in the current form we've been seeing them
No,
in.
no, there's one. It's not in the current form already. If they're restructuring, then it's not in the current form already that we're used to of what Ubisoft was. And the minute they started to sell some of their IPs a couple months ago, you knew that things were going to change.
Bombay brings up a good opportunity and potential outcome of this. The rabbits break loose and start running Ubisoft. There you go. So yeah, that could happen. They own the rabbits, and the rabbits might revolt. So that could be a potential. But we'll see what happens with Ubisoft in the time ahead of us. We'll see what happens with all their franchises, and if other stuff starts getting axed. This isn't the first time they've axed stuff. There was even, they axed that in development Assassin's Creed Civil War game because they were afraid people wouldn't like the racist material. It's like it's what happened in real life.
Correct.
So
But they didn't mind when it was the native Indian. They didn't
yeah,
care.
yeah. So we'll see what Ubisoft begins to do. But you brought up about Saudi Arabia buying stuff. Let's talk about a company that's being bought by Saudi Arabia, EA, and currently BioWare building Mass Effect 5. This comes from
Correct.
Tom Phillips at IGN. BioWare is slowly beginning to build itself back up following the downsizing experience in the wake of Dragon Age to Veilguard, with hiring now underway for a new senior role on Mass Effect 5. The veteran RPG studio saw numerous staff members depart following the launch of its most recent Dragon Age game, which failed to meet publisher EA's sales expectations. This process came after the decision was made not to develop any further content for Dragon Age, and while Mass Effect 5 officially remains in the pre-production phase. Now, as work on Mass Effect 5 quietly continues, BioWare is hiring a production director for the game who will report directly in the project's overall boss, BioWare and Mass Effect franchise veteran Mike Gamble. They give some stuff about the hiring mumbo jumbo. BioWare first announced plans to make Mass Effect 5 back in 2020, a date that now feels a lifetime ago, in part to simply reassure fans that it remained committed to the franchise. In reality, though, the company was still busy devoting most of its development efforts into getting Veilguard done and out the door. Also, earlier this week, they fully sunset Anthem, so Anthem is no longer up, but I do know fans have pack servers for Anthem and so on. But hey, Mass Effect 5 is still happening. You put this in the slate. How you feeling about that? I love Mass Effects.
I'm not a Mass Effect fan.
I know you're not, but Mass Effect original trilogy is a goated RPG trilogy. Andromeda was a huge misstep for the Mass Effect franchise, but hey, to see them continuing and reassuring that Mass Effect 5 is on the way has me as a fan very happy. So
Yeah, I bought the trilogy maybe about, I would say, in the late summer, early fall of 2025, thinking I would put it in, give it another shot. Maybe it was just a phase that I was in. I tried playing it. I'm not a Mass Effect fan.
why?
I know. I don't know. Again, I think that there's a part of me that I'm really not that futuristic, put me in space type player. I'd rather have it apocalyptic Earth, rewritten history stuff is what I like more. Maybe that's why I couldn't get into it.
I don't know. Mass Effect, I think the original trilogy, like I said, it's amazing. I think just in terms of the writing, BioWare was operating at an all-time high with Mass Effect. And some of the most memorable companions in any RPG, and I think they set the foundation of what a companion could be in a role-playing game. I know you say you're not the sci-fi person, but like then you go and love Knights of the Old Republic, which these are in the same vein of the same science fiction. So I hear you, and it could just be not your cup of tea, which is totally fine. But Mass Effect is very influential and revolutionary for the RPG genre. And I hope Mass Effect 5 comes out. I hope it hits. I hope it is what everyone wants. And it needs to bring back Mass Effect in a huge way.
Did I just hear you compare Mass Effect to Star Wars?
Yeah.
You're totally insane.
Okay.
That's not even
Explain.
close. That's not even close to this world. When you say that, hey, you like Knights of the Old Republic or that, this isn't close to being a Star Wars, spin-off of any sort or a Star Wars story of any sort.
All right, I'll break it down very very simply. Mass Effect is very similar to Star Wars because in tone, structure, and theme, they are both space operas. They both function as modern interactive versions of very classic science fiction tropes. Both franchises offer a diverse crew of people, usually on ships, of aliens and humans working together. The themes always parallel too. They are very similar, but in terms of the world and structure, Mass Effect is very similar to Star Trek, as Star Trek is also kind of similar to Star Wars. They all operate within the same umbrella of science fiction. They are the space operas. I'm not saying that they're one for one, but I think you're insane saying they're not similar in science fiction because they operate under the exact subgenre and umbrella of the science fiction realm.
Okay, I'll buy into that statement, but the reality is it's not even close to Star Wars. You could say you have a Lamborghini and you have a Chevy Cavalier. They're both cars. They're both in the same realm of getting you from point A to point B, but they're two totally different, objects there. So you could stick with that opinion, but it's no Star Wars.
We'll put this to the chat. Hey, chat, is Mass Effect similar to Star Wars? Cherry Tomato Boy says Kevin loves rage baiting because
I'm not a Mass Effect fan.
You don't have to be a Mass Effect fan, but they are very similar because, like I said, it's the same. I'm not going to go over it, but it's the same kind of science fiction setting.
But that's again like saying a Chevy Cavalier and a Lamborghini are they're cars. They're both have engines. Both have four tires.
I think that now, if you were to say, now we're going off a tangent. If you were to say, let me think here, Blade Runner is similar to Star Wars, I would give you that comparison because, yes, while they both operate under the science fiction umbrella as a whole, just like a Chevy and a Lamborghini operate under the car umbrella as a whole, Blade Runner goes into the dystopian sci-fi subgenre of science fiction, whereas Mass Effect and Star Wars, they go into the space opera side of science fiction. So I don't think your comparison works. These are space operas. This is dystopia. Yes, like you said, Lamborghini and Chevy, yes, they're both cars, but a Lamborghini and a Ferrari, they're both supercars. Whereas a Chevy and, let's say, a Ford, they're both just everyday cars, but they're under the same thing. But there's differentiating factors.
Bombay says he never played Mass Effect. Don't worry about it. You're not missing anything.
Okay. This guy just likes to rage bait like church. I don't interact with you anymore. Let's move on. You put this one in here, and I'm going to actually screen share this because I find this very fascinating. This comes from MSI itself. This is a new monitor. This is the MEG-X and MPG341CQR. It's essentially a monitor that has AI capabilities. But Dad, do you want to break this one down a little bit?
Yeah, the reason why I put this in here is, and again, I'm going to say that they're saying that this is only to be used in single player, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But this is a monitor that has built-in AI that when you're playing multiplayer games such as Call of Duty or whatever, what it's actually doing is it's highlighting on your screen, putting a halo around the enemy so that you could shoot them, and other things like flashbangs. When somebody throws a flashbang, you can see through the flashbang. Like, I wanted to put this in here more so to say, like, is this taking the AI way too far? Because again, if you read through this and watch, and I've watched a live video of this, which was absolutely insane to see what it does. But if you saw there, like the first circle that they have circled on that up top, the AI tracker, the gold circle is circling and highlighting your enemy coming, and then the white circle is what I would see on my regular monitor. It's just absolutely taking it to the next level of cheating. And apparently, as I delved in deeper to this, there's no anti-cheat detection for this. So this is run right from your monitor, because I had to really jump both feet into this, because I'm thinking, is it using, computing power from your CPU or GPU to do this? And it absolutely is not. This is all on board the monitor, because I even went to see, like, is this monitor coming with some type of chip in it? But it's all AI driven. And I just think that this is taking it to the really next level of cheating. The industry's trying to take strides at cutting down on the cheating. And then you have a manufacturer like this that's coming out with hardware to, entice or enhance the cheating. I think that's the problem with it. But maybe I'm wrong with this. Maybe some people would love this, but what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this one is interesting because it is cheating at a certain degree, and they're given the wink wink nudge nudge to not use it during multiplayer gaming. And it would be kind of impossible as it stands with current anti-cheat technology to detect if something um is running off of a monitor. Like, I've never thought about that from a technical aspect of how that would even work, because so many cheats today are stuff that you download or, embedded into the kernel. That's why there's the kernel anti-cheat. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to break down, but this is definitely, in terms of the multiplayer gaming space, a very unethical piece of tech that is coming out, because this gives such an unfair advantage. Like, they talk about recovering faster from flashbangs. Like, if you're playing Counter-Strike and you get flashbanged, like, you have such a competitive edge to you as a player, because it's alleviating the flashbang at a much rapid pace than what the game is coded for. Yeah, I don't think this monitor should exist, to be honest. I think some of the features here, yeah, I think is really cool and should exist on the monitor. But when there's things that inherently break what is coded into the game and design, yeah, not only are you breaking the artist's intent, especially for a competitive multiplayer, like balancing intent, you're just giving yourself an unfair advantage. I want to pull this in. Bombay says, I think it's possible to detect it. You could just ban/deny the game from running when that monitor is seen in the hardware of the system. On a console, it would be a lot harder to find it. Yeah. And there's tons of console players out there, and I don't know, but I really don't think this monitor should exist in its entire. At least all these features should not exist.
Yeah, here's the thing with Bombay's statement is, when you look at the monitor, and I think, don't quote me on the price, but it was like 860 or 890, and you look at the specs of the monitor as a pure monitor, it is a hell of a monitor. But the reality is, if I got this monitor and played it truly by only using it in single player, then I go out to multiplayer, and I'm one of those people that are going to abide by the law. Now you're penalizing me for having this monitor if it detects this monitor to shut it off. Because I'm telling you, I did jump into this really deep to see if there's any way that this is using anything GPU, CPU of your actual PC, and it's not. So I don't know that they can just simply say, hey, I detect this monitor, so we're not going to use you, because there might be somebody out there that is really abiding by the law,
Which
bought this monitor not for the feature, because not a lot of people knew about this feature. But when you look at the specs, it's a hell of a buy for the cost.
hang on, I want to pause, because there is something that I didn't think about, we didn't talk about, but Cherry Tomato Boy brings up an interesting point, which is, they say, I think it could potentially help with accessibility issues, but this takes it too far, which I agree. There could be an accessibility use case for this, but Now
What does
you're
the flashbang have to do with accessibility that
well,
you could see through the flashbang?
okay, you're taking one little aspect of it and you're not thinking about the whole picture. Uh, but
Well,
there,
my point being is I don't think they had the intention for accessibility to build this.
but there are people who are technically legally blind. For example, the AI scope that zooms in on targets with precision can help players who, there's that what's his name? Steven Saylor. He's the blind gamer. He's always on like accessibility runs and talking about like visual things that gaming can do, and having that scope to enlarge the image for single player games, I would say like definitely helps a certain kind of audience, which I agree with. But yes, the flashbang, I agree with. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And highlight in-game characters, yes, that is inherently an accessibility thing that could happen. But now you're getting into like there's two opposite ends of the spectrum, and it seems like they're going all in on one that could be used for something completely different. And there would need to be checks and balances for this.
The accessibility needs to be built in at the programming level of the game, not a monitor.
I mean, I'm not going to necessarily disagree. Then we're seeing lots of leaps and bounds from tools being built for gaming for accessibility. Yeah, this is such an interesting one. Like I said, I don't think this monitor should exist. I do like the specs of it though. The specs of it are
Specs
really
of it
nice.
are incredible. That's where I said respectfully, Bombay. Like I agree. Like if they would just shut it down, but I would buy this monitor for the cost and the specs. It's an OLED. I mean, it is pretty decent monitor. And it's just a feature that came with it. So I don't know that I should be penalized because I bought it for that and don't use it as the cheating factor.
Yeah,
But
I think if
anybody
they,
that's watched me play Arc Raider lately, I don't need to cheat.
yeah, yeah, that's an understatement.
Come on now. Come on, man. I'm telling you, I almost took a picture for this podcast. There was a sign I was at somewhere that it was a 1-800 number for elder abuse. And I was going to bring it into this gaming podcast and hold it up for you. And hopefully some of our listeners and viewers would call for me for the elder abuse that you give me.
Yeah, hang on. It's funny. You're talking about how you don't need the cheat. I'm bringing up a clip from our stream here of when you had a kettle and said, "Oh, this thing only fires one shot. I need the reload."
You guys were calling on a kettle. To me, it was shooting, and it came up and said you had to press X to reload. Come on now.
I gotta find it. I gotta find it.
This is a news gaming podcast. So let's move on. Let's move on.
In terms of the AI, though, the one thing that I do find that was an interesting piece of AI, which was, I'm trying to find it here, their AI care sensor, which was a new sensor technology that offers robust proactive protection for the OLED panel. I do think that's interesting. I think that's another respectable use of AI. Like I said, I think all the other features sound great. It's this see ahead in the game one that is a little.
Yeah, no, that was one of the great features. You walk away and it shuts down. I'm telling you, if you look through that monitor and the price, it is a worthwhile monitor. It's just that there's one feature that gets sketchy. You may see that monitor on my desk in one of our next the things we do.
Thinking of Arc Raiders, this article comes from Derek Strickland from Tweaktown. Arc Raiders sells 12 million copies in less than 3 months and thwarts Call of Duty's success. Really don't need to jump into this too much, but hey, Arc Raiders selling 12 million copies in 3 months. How do you feel about that? I think it's good. New IP coming out, and it's giving competition in a space that has predominantly been dominated by the same game for the last however many years.
That to me is the biggest point. I think is that you have, an extraction shooter coming out that just and nobody saw it coming. Nobody said, "Hey, this is the next big game." It was just one that hit and that everybody gravitated to, pulled everybody out of. And I don't even think it was up against COD. I think at this point when it dropped, Battlefield was burying COD and it took it out. Now, I just read somewhere that Battlefield was the #1 selling game in 2025.
Let's see.
check that up, and which was totally shocking to me that was the number one selling game in 2025
Yep, Battlefield 6 was the number one selling game in the United States
in
in
the United States,
2025.
which is shocking to me. Now you take the number one selling game and you have Arc Raider just dethrone that. So
No.
that just tells you that, one, the extraction shooter's not dead. We're not tired of it being, i.e., like a Call of Duty, but we are starving for some new IP. My beef about Call of Duty. I haven't played Call of Duty pretty much in the last 6-7 years, because to me, it is the Madden of shooters, where it's the same game, they reskin it. Madden just, it's the same game, they add a couple little features and they just change uniforms. I think that Call of Duty needs to take a back seat for a little bit, let people miss it, come up with some new stuff, and come back with a vengeance and get back on top. Just
In
my opinion.
the United States, Call of Duty landed at number 5 in the top selling games of all year, which is crazy because Call of Duty usually sits at number 2 or 1. Another funny thing, we're still in the year 2025, or well, in the year 2025, and Grand Theft Auto 5 is number 20 of the top 20. It's like, yeah, that game just does not die. But I just want to pull in another thing in terms of sales. Nintendo Switch 2 is the best-selling console of 2025 in the United States, and it's outpacing the Nintendo Switch. So cool to see that succeeding as well. We all knew it was going to succeed as the predecessor, but I think that also leads to another thing, which also comes from Derek Strickland in Tweaktown, that the Switch 2 price increases to $499 coming in 2026 due to analysis predictions because of, say it with me, RAM. In the article, it states that Nintendo will raise the price of the Switch 2 throughout 2026 and possibly only offer a $500 bundle. Analysis firm Nico Partners predicts the tech sector is once again facing disruptions. Hungry AI data centers are eating up the supply of key components required to make electronics like the Switch 2, with RAM becoming quite scarce. Reports indicate that Nintendo is paying 41% more for RAM used in the Switch 2. A dramatic production cost typically telegraphs a price hike. I don't really need to say much more. We talked about this in the AI episode. Things are going to continue to go up in price. Things are continuing to get worse for right now. And we're going to see not only components go up, but we said everything is going to go up. Anything that uses RAM, computer chips in some form or another, going to go up. It's only going to get worse from here.
I just saw, because it went from RAM to GPUs. Now I just saw where, the storage is now skyrocketing through the roof too. So it's going to hit everything.
My new computer that I built in September has been a better return of investment than any stocks that I had.
Yeah, and I built mine at the end of December 2024, right before everything started to get a little bit crazy. So, yeah, I'm good at least until this AI RAM stuff goes down in 2 more years. I'll be good.
Well, I have seen, kind of, related to all this, that OpenAI is now incorporating ads into their free tier, and essentially they're potentially looking to be running out of money by 2027 if they don't make headway. We can keep this to a short tangent. Do you think the AI bubble is already starting to pop? And do you think once it pops, we might see a mass, selling of these used components or overflow, and we'll start to see things kind of stable out?
No, it's nowhere near ready to pop. And what's happening is, and again, for those of you who don't know, I've been in the television industry with sales and marketing for 37 years. Everything comes back to advertising. We saw it with the streaming services. Everybody's like, oh, just subscribe. And they realize at the end of the day that, content is king, and to keep the content up, they can't rely on a monthly subscription. So they have to lean on advertising. When you look at OpenAI, and you can substitute any of them, and it's going to come to Grok, Claude, Perplexity, DeepSeek, whatever you want to substitute in there. Eventually, it will come back that if you have a free version that that doesn't require a subscription, that you're going to have to, lean into some advertising to subsidize that, because the subscriptions won't pay for the advancement that you need to do with the technology. So again, that's anything. You see it on consoles, you see it on streaming services, you see it on regular television that you turn on, you see it on every app that you open up. That's subsidizing the technology. They can't survive without it.
Base says, will they sell the components or destroy them for tax reasons? But thinking about AI, our last article for today comes from IGN, written by Wesley Yinpool. The Master Chief voice actor Steve Downes says deceptive AI reproductions of his voice crosses a line. Steve Downes, the actor behind Master Chief's iconic voice, has said deceptive AI reproductions of his voice cross the line that gets into an area that he is uncomfortable with and wants it to stop. Speaking in an AMA on his YouTube channel, Downes acknowledges the inevitability of AI and even describes some fan-made projects that's really cool, but hit out at unauthorized use of his voice. One of the things that can be overwhelming when it comes to attention from fans is when AI gets involved, he said. A lot of it is harmless, I suppose, but some of it cannot be harmless. I've been very vocal about my feelings about the use of AI, which on the one hand is inevitable and has many positive effects on not only show business, but humanity in general, but it can also be a detriment. It can also be something that deprives the actor of his work. I've heard some things online in terms of AI and the reproduction of my voice that sounds like my voice that, like I said, most of the stuff I've seen is pretty harmless, but it can be not that way real quick. So I'm not a proponent. I don't like it. I would prefer that it not be done. There's a lot of fan-made projects out there that are really cool, that are done just from the heart. But when you get to the AI part and deceiving somebody into thinking, in my case, that these are lines that I actually spoke when they're not, that's when we cross a line that gets into an area that I am uncomfortable with. And I'll go on record with that. So,
and I agree 100% with that. If it was the studio taking his voice and putting it in AI and using it, and again, we run across this in my television industry with news talent. Like when you sign on, you sign away, your likeness, that the company can use the likeness of you anywhere for profit or nonprofit. So if you're in agreement, if he's a voice actor and they sign on to it and they say, we can use your voice likeness, and they do it, there's nothing you can do. But when you get a fan-based thing that's using either your likeness or your voice, it's all the same. Yeah, that's an egregious, thing against him. And I don't know that, just look at it this way. If somebody took your likeness personally and your voice and ran it through AI, and you were saying some, nasty things, and they put it out into the internet, like, you wouldn't want that. So whether good or bad, somebody using your likeness is not. Now, again, people don't realize, but like even Facebook, anything you put on Facebook, they can use your likeness for profit. So they can create an ad right now and use the picture that you just uploaded from you and your buddy out at the hockey game, and put this up on Facebook, and they could take that picture and use it in their commercial tomorrow. Like, there's times that people don't realize how much they give up their likeness.
I mean, once again, actors, artists, they need protections with all this. I know the Screen Actors Guild has been pushing for a lot of protections, but we're in this world. It's an unfortunate world and situation that we continue to live in. So I don't know. There's going to have to be some, once again, checks and balances introduced to all of this, and there needs to be protections put in place for actors, because it's just going to keep snowballing from here.
So, who's going to protect me?
My mother.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's who you got. But, well, all that being said, those are the news articles that we think you should know about from this week. We hope that you learned a little bit of something. I hope you got frustrated, entertained, whatever. The gaming industry continues to change, and there's always going to be happy articles, sad articles, and so on. So it's the industry that we navigate. that being said, we are the Father and Son in Gaming News Podcast. Right now we are a bi-weekly show. So every other Friday, you find us here digging deep into the articles that we feel that you should know about from the week. All that being said, you can find us here on all of our socials once again on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Spotify. We're at Active Reload Gaming. Twitch or Twitter and X, we're at ActiveRel. That is with an REL, ActiveRel Gaming. So go on, find us over there. Show us some love if you so desire. And then if you want extra love up here, we'll give you a hug and a kiss for this one. Join our Discord. You can scan the QR code and come in and chat with us. We will be there ready to talk with you. I hope everyone has a great weekend. To those on the East Coast, stay warm. I know a big storm is on the way, so good luck shoveling feet of snow from what I've heard.
Tune in on Monday for a very, very good podcast.
Yeah, Monday's podcast, I've decided to unleash the beast with this one. I am going to probably be taking a back seat and just letting this one yap a lot because there's an article that we did not include, but the word revolves around hog. If you know what I'm saying. So some gears in the cog, some monsters that invade, and being in a city on Emergence Day, I think. I don't know. Never heard of that game in my life, but I guess we'll find out on Monday. We'll talk all about it and the story beats that the creative director has talked about. And we'll be going over his wish list for Gears of War E-Day and what the series needs in order to bring it back to what Gears of War was in the 360 era when it first released.
They need to hire me for a consultant and I'll get it back on track.
There you go. Anyways, I hope each and every one of you have a great weekend, and we will see you all on Monday. If maybe there'll be a stream this weekend, we'll give communications in the Discord if we decide to do one. All right, all have a great one, and we will see you all next time.